Millionaire got text from a stranger. Our son needs a donor. Only your blood can save him. He ran without. The pediatric ICU buzzed with quiet urgency as a nurse led him through sliding doors. And there, in the third bed, lay a small boy with tubes snaking from thin arms. A boy with the same hazel eyes Grant saw in his mirror every morning. Have you ever received an emergency text from an unknown number? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Grant Whitaker's world collapsed with 8 words on his phone. Our son needs a donor. Only your blood can save him. His fingers froze mid-signature on the $50 million contract. Across the mahogany table, investors exchanged glances as he read the message again. Son? His blood? Excuse me, he said, voice hollow as he rose from his chair. Family emergency. Family. His business partner's eyebrows shot up. In 10 years, Grant had never mentioned family. Outside, the San Diego sun blinded him as he fumbled with his keys, heart hammering against designer silk. The attached address led to Mercy Children's Hospital, 20 minutes away in good traffic. He made it in 12. The pediatric ICU buzzed with quiet urgency as a nurse led him through sliding doors. And there, in the third bed, lay a small boy with tubes snaking from thin arms. A boy with the same hazel eyes Grant saw in his mirror every morning. A woman stood beside the bed, tears cutting mascara trails down her cheeks. When she turned, something flickered in Grant's mind. Not recognition, but the shadow of it. Like trying to remember a dream. He's yours, Grant, she whispered. And there's no time to explain. While doctors prepped him for the emergency transfusion, Grant caught movement in the hallway. 2 men in dark suits watching through the glass. Not hospital staff. Not family. Something about their calculating gaze raised the hair on his neck. As the needle slid into his arm, Grant realized 3 chilling truths. He had a son he never knew existed. The boy was dying without his blood, and whoever those men were, they weren't here to help. The life he built with such precision was about to shatter, and saving this child might uncover secrets someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to bury. When Grant walked into that hospital room, he wasn't prepared for the punch of recognition. The boy, Leo, the woman had called him, couldn't have been more than 8. His skin had a gray cast beneath the tan, but his features were unmistakable. Grant's mother's nose, Grant's jawline, Grant's eyes. How is this possible? Grant asked, rolling down his sleeve after the blood draw. I don't even know who you are. The woman's laugh held no humor. You did once. I am Valerie Chen. Vamitin Austin. 9 years ago, the doctors hovered nearby, speaking in urgent whispers about compatibility tests and rare blood factors. Grant tried to place her face, search his memory for Austin, for this woman, for anything that would explain a child. Nothing came. 9 years ago, I was finishing business school in California, he said firmly. I've never lived in Austin. Valerie's eyes narrowed. They really did it, then? You actually don't remember. Before he could demand an explanation, the doctor interrupted. Mr. Whitaker, your blood work confirms you're a match. We need to begin the transfusion immediately if we're going to stabilize him. Grant looked back toward the hallway. The men in suits had moved closer, one speaking intently into a phone. Who are they? He asked Valerie. Trouble, she whispered. Please, just help Leo first. I'll explain everything after. Grant had built his fortune on calculated decisions, on never acting without understanding all variables. But staring at the boy's face, his son's face, rational thought crumbled. Do it, he told the doctor. As they prepared the transfusion equipment, Grant's phone buzzed with texts from the abandoned meeting. He silenced it without looking. For the first time in his meticulously controlled life, business would have to wait. The needle slid into his arm, and he watched his blood travel through clear tubing toward the boy. Something about the deep crimson made his head spin with déjà vu. Why don't I remember you? He asked Valerie quietly. Her eyes never left Leo's face. Because 9 years ago, you discovered something dangerous. Something about your own blood. They couldn't let you remember. Your father's company, Biothera Pharmaceuticals. Grant's laugh was sharp, My father died when I was 19. Heart attack on his yacht. Valerie finally looked at him, her gaze unflinching. Is that what they told you? Outside, one of the suited men pressed a phone to the window, displaying a photo of Grant entering the hospital. His blood ran cold as the man's lips formed clear words through the glass. We found him. Leo's eyes fluttered open during the second hour of the transfusion. Grant, still connected by the foreline, leaned forward as the boy's gaze focused. Who are you? Leo asked, voice paper thin. Before Grant could fumble for an answer, Valerie stepped in. This is Grant. He's helping make you better. The boy studied Grant with unsettling intensity. You have eyes like mine. Yeah, Grant said, throat tight. I noticed that too. A nurse bustled in to check Leo's vitals, breaking the moment. Color's improving already. Your father's blood is doing the trick. Father. The word hung in the air like a live wire. When the nurse left, Grant turned to Valerie. You need to start talking. Now. She glanced nervously at the door. The suited men had disappeared, which somehow felt more threatening than their presence. Leo has a rare blood condition. His body can't produce certain proteins needed for cellular memory, the way cells remember their function. Without them, his systems are shutting down. She took a shaky breath. Only blood with the same unique markers can save him. Your blood. Grant stared at the boy, now drifting back to sleep. Why didn't you find me sooner? I tried to stay hidden. I thought we were safe, but her voice cracked. 3 days ago, he collapsed at school. When standard treatments failed, I had no choice. How did you even find me? I never lost track of you, she admitted. I couldn't risk Leo needing you someday. Grant's phone vibrated. His partner again. He glanced at the message and froze. Someone just emptied my accounts. All of them. Valerie's face drained of color. They're moving faster than I thought. We need to leave now. Leave? He's in the middle of treatment. If we stay, none of us will make it through the night. She began disconnecting monitoring equipment with practiced efficiency. Grant grabbed her wrist. Stop. You're not taking him anywhere until you tell me exactly what's happening. Her eyes met his, steady despite her fear. Your blood contains a naturally occurring compound that can alter memory formation. Biothera weaponized it. You discovered their program 9 years ago, Project Mnemosine, and they used their own product on you. That's insane. Is it? Try to remember Austin. Try to remember me. She moved closer, her scent triggering something just beyond his grasp. Try to remember the week we spent together before you discovered what your father was really doing with your blood samples. A hospital security alert blared overhead. Through the window, Grant saw the 2 suited men returning, with 4 more behind them. Trust your instincts, Grant, Valerie pleaded. Look at Leo. Look at your son. Do we run or do we die? They escaped through the service elevator. Grant carrying Leo wrapped in blankets. Valerie leading with hospital badges she'd somehow acquired. The boy weighed almost nothing in Grant's arms, his breathing shallow but steady. My car's in the VIP lot, Grant said as they hurried through the basement corridor. Valerie shook her head. They'll have it flagged. We need something untraceable. 5 minutes later, they were speeding away in a hospital maintenance van, Valerie behind the wheel. Leo lay across the back seat, for bag jury-rigged to the ceiling handle. Head north on the 15, Valerie instructed. There's a place we can go, somewhere off their radar. Grant's head pounded as he processed the impossible situation. You realize how this sounds, right? Secret memory programs? My dead father's company hunting us? Then how do you explain this? Valerie tossed him her phone, open to a news article from 9 years ago. His own face stared back. Younger, hair longer, standing outside Biothera's Austin research facility with protest signs. The headline read, Biothera whistleblower disappears after allegations. That's not possible, Grant muttered. I've never been to Austin. I was at Stanford 9 years ago. Were you? Check your actual records. Not the ones you remember. The paper trail. A flash hit Grant like lightning. Valerie's face illuminated by moonlight, her laugh as they ran through summer rain, her body against his, then vanished before he could grasp it. What was that? He gasped. Your blood is fighting back, she said, eyes on the road. The transfusion to Leo created a connection. Your memory wants to return. That makes no scientific sense. Neither does a compound that can selectively erase memories. But Biothera made billions weaponizing what's in your veins. Grant's phone rang, his executive assistant. He answered on speaker. Grant? Thank God. The FBI just raided the office. They're saying you embezzled company funds. Your accounts, properties, everything's been frozen. What's happening? Jessica, listen carefully. I need you to send me all my personal records. School transcripts, medical history, everything from before Biothera. Biothera? The pharmaceutical company? What does that have to? Just do it. And Jessica, tell no one we spoke. After hanging up, Grant turned to Valerie. If what you're saying is true, they're burning my life to the ground. They can't risk you remembering. Not with what you know. In the back seat, Leo stirred, eyes finding Grant's in the rearview mirror. The boy's gaze held none of the suspicion or fear that should accompany being whisked away by a stranger. Instead, there was something else, recognition. I dreamed about you, Leo said softly. Before I ever saw you. Mom said it wasn't real. Valerie's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as Grant's world tilted on its axis. The safe house was a weathered two-story farmhouse 30 miles east of San Diego, tucked behind acres of avocado groves. As they carried Leo inside, Grant noted the contrast between the neglected exterior and meticulously maintained interior. Whose place is this? He asked, settling Leo onto a bed in the ground floor bedroom. Your mother's childhood home, Valerie said, drawing dust covers off furniture. You bought it through a shell corporation after you discovered Project Mnemosiny. You thought we might need somewhere to hide someday. I haven't seen my mother since college. How would you know about her family home? Because you told me, Grant. The night you also told me you loved me. The declaration hung between them as she busied herself setting up makeshift medical equipment for Leo. The boy had stabilized with the transfusion but remained weak, drifting between sleep and consciousness. Grant stepped onto the porch, needing air, needing distance from claims that shook his carefully constructed reality. His phone showed 18 missed calls and Jessica's email with the records he'd requested. His Stanford transcript showed a gap year, one he'd filled with memories of business internships. His medical records included regular blood draws at Biothera facilities, appointments he had no recollection of attending. Most damning was a birth certificate for Leo Grant Shun, father listed as Grant Whitaker. The birth date aligned perfectly with the timeline Valerie described. When he returned inside, Valerie was checking Leo's temperature. His fever's down, she said without looking up. Your blood is already helping. I found my name on his birth certificate, Grant said quietly. I never hid the truth from the records, just from those who might use him to get to you. Grant leaned against the doorframe, studying them both. The physical resemblance was undeniable, but it was more than that. Something about Leo's determined expression as he fought against sleep mirrored Grant's own stubborn streak. Why can't I remember any of it? 9 years is a long time to completely erase. They didn't erase everything. They created new memories to replace what they took. Classic memory redirection. But look around. There's a reason this place felt familiar when we arrived. She was right. He'd navigated the driveway without directions, had known which floorboards would creak. Later, after Leo had fallen asleep, Grant explored the house. In what must have been his mother's sewing room, he found a loose floorboard under the window, a hiding place discovered by childhood instinct. Inside was a sealed manila envelope with his handwriting across the front. If found, destroy immediately. His hands trembled as he broke the seal. Inside was a USB drive, a small vial of blood, and a handwritten note. If you're reading this, you've forgotten everything. But your blood remembers. Trust Valerie. Trust Leo. Your father is alive, and what he's built with Project Mnemosiny will destroy thousands of lives, starting with yours. Grant didn't sleep. How could he, with his past and present colliding around him? He spent the night reviewing files from a USB drive on an ancient laptop found in the house's study. Project Mnemosiny's documentation was meticulous. Clinical trials, test subjects, results tracking memory suppression and replacement. His father's signature on every authorization page. His father, who he believed dead for 9 years. Most disturbing were the videos. Grant himself, strapped to a laboratory chair, fighting against restraints as a clear solution dripped into his fore. Subject 37, a clinical voice narrated. Full memory restructuring protocol initiated. In the video, his younger self locked eyes with the camera. "If you're watching this," he said directly into the lens, "remember Austin. Remember the prototype. Remember what's in the basement of Biothera headquarters." The recording cut off as a mask was placed over his face. When dawn broke, Grant found Valerie in the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast. "You knew," he said, placing the laptop on the counter. "You knew what they did to me." She didn't flinch. "Yes." "How? Were you part of it?" Pain flashed across her features. "I was a research assistant at Biothera. That's how we met. You were providing regular blood samples for what you thought was anemia research." And then, her hands stilled on the cutting board. "We fell in love. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. When I discovered I was pregnant, I told you first, not even suspecting what you'd already uncovered about the project, which was that your father was using your blood to develop memory warfare agents for military applications. Targeted forgetting, memory implantation, thought control, essentially." She pushed a mug of coffee toward him. "You threatened to expose everything. The next day, you disappeared. 3 days later, you resurfaced with no memory of me, of Austin, of anything related to Biothera." Grant's phone chimed with a news alert. His face plastered across financial news networks, accused of embezzlement and fraud. His carefully built reputation dismantled overnight. "Why now?" he asked. "After 9 years, why come after me now?" Before she could answer, Leo appeared in the doorway, looking stronger than the night before. "Mom." His eyes darted between them. "Are we safe?" The simple question from his son, crystallized everything. Whatever the truth about his past, Leo was real. The danger was real. And something inside Grant knew, with bone-deep certainty, that Valerie wasn't lying. "Come here, buddy," Grant said, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. "How are you feeling?" Leo approached cautiously. "Better. Your blood helped." When the boy reached for a piece of toast, Grant noticed a small birthmark on his wrist, identical to one Grant had carried his whole life. "We have the same mark," Leo said, following his gaze. "Mom says that's how she always knew you were my dad, even when the doctors weren't sure." Another memory fragment surfaced. Valerie tracing the mark on Grant's wrist as they lay tangled in sheets, her voice teasing. "Now I'll always be able to find you." Something fierce and protective unfurled in Grant's chest. His past might be a fabrication, but this was blood truth. Leo's condition improved throughout the day, but by evening, his fever returned. Grant found Valerie pressing a cool cloth to the boy's forehead, worry etched across her face, his body's fighting the transfusion, she explained. "We need a more permanent solution. The treatment protocol's on the USB drive," Grant said. "But we need access to a lab, specialized equipment." "There's another option." Valerie hesitated. "Your memories. If we could restore them, you'd remember the formula for stabilizing Leo's condition. You developed it yourself when you discovered what was happening to your blood. How exactly do we restore memories that were chemically erased? Not erased, suppressed. There's a difference." She stood, determination replacing exhaustion. "And I can bring them back because I helped create the suppression protocol." The revelation hung between them like a live grenade. "You helped them." Grant's voice hardened. "You helped erase me. They gave me a choice. Help them or watch you die." Her eyes never left his. "I chose to keep you alive. To keep our son's father alive, even if you'd never remember us." In the adjacent room, Leo coughed violently. The sound cut through Grant's anger, refocusing him on what mattered now. "What do we need to do?" 30 minutes later, the dining room had transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Valerie prepared a syringe with steady hands, explaining as she worked. "This compound triggers neural pathways associated with suppressed memories. It won't be pleasant. Your brain will fight it. Like withdrawal, Grant noted. Worse, you'll experience memory fragments, disjointed, intense, overwhelming. Some real, some fabricated by your mind, trying to protect itself. She tapped the syringe. I'll guide you through it, but ultimately, you have to want to remember. And if I don't find what we need for Leo, her expression softened. Then we try something else. We don't give up. As she tied a tourniquet around his arm, their faces drew close. Grant noticed a small scar along her hairline he hadn't seen before. Without thinking, he reached up to trace it. You got this the night we met, he said, then froze, startled by his own words. Valerie's eyes widened. Yes, a beaker broke in the lab. You helped clean the cut. The memory vanished as quickly as it had surfaced, leaving Grant disoriented. Let's do this, he said firmly. The injection burned like fire, spreading through his veins. Grant gripped the chair arms, knuckles white as the first wave hit. Not memories yet, just overwhelming sensation. Valerie's hands pressed against his temples, her face inches from his. Focus on my voice, she instructed. Find Austin. Find the summer we met. Images flashed like strobe lights. A laboratory hallway. Valerie in a white coat, laughing as they shared coffee after hours. His father's face, not dead, but very much alive, watching from an observation room as Grant provided blood samples. Then deeper memories. Valerie's body against his, her skin warm in moonlight filtering through cheap apartment blinds. Her whisper, "We shouldn't be doing this." His response, "I don't care." The intensity built until Grant couldn't distinguish past from present. Through it all, Valerie anchored him, her hands cool against his burning skin. "That's it," she encouraged. "Follow the connection. Find what they took from you." A final surge ripped through him. Valerie telling him she was pregnant, his initial shock transforming to joy. Then discovery, betrayal, his father's voice. "You'll never expose this project, son. You'll never even remember it existed." Grant's eyes snapped open, gasping as though surfacing from deep water. "The lab," he choked out, "under Biothera headquarters. That's where they kept the prototype stabilizing agent, the only permanent cure for Leo's condition." "You remember?" Valerie asked, hope breaking through her professional detachment. "Not everything, but enough." His hand caught hers, enough to know what we have to do next. Morning light filtered through dusty blinds as Grant explained what he'd remembered. Leo sat wrapped in blankets at the kitchen table, strong enough to join them, but still alarmingly pale. "My father discovered the memory-altering properties of my blood by accident," Grant said, pacing the worn linoleum. "I inherited a rare genetic mutation from my mother, a protein that affects how memories form and consolidate. Like a natural version of what they developed for Project Mnemosyne," Valerie added. Grant nodded. "When I started providing regular samples for what I thought was anemia research, they were actually isolating this protein, synthesizing it, enhancing it." Leo followed the conversation with surprising comprehension for an 8-year-old. "Is that why I get sick? Because of the same mutation?" "Yes," Valerie said gently. "Your body produces the protein, but can't regulate it properly. It attacks your own cellular memory, how your cells remember what they're supposed to do." Grant spread printouts from the USB files across the table. "According to this, I developed a stabilizing agent, a way to control the protein production without eliminating it entirely. And this stabilizer is at Biothera?" Valerie asked. "In a secured lab beneath the main research facility in La Jolla. 3 levels down, behind biometric security that only senior researchers can access." Leo's small voice cut through their planning. "Are you going to break in? Like spies?" Despite everything, Grant smiled. "Something like that." While Leo rested, Grant and Valerie inventoried supplies found throughout the house. Evidence of past preparation by a version of himself he still couldn't fully remember. "I must have suspected I'd need to go back someday," Grant said, examining a case containing lockpicks, signal jammers, and keycard duplicators. Valerie watched him from across the room. "You were always thinking 10 steps ahead. It's what made you dangerous to them." As Grant sorted through equipment, another memory surfaced. Valerie pressed against a laboratory counter after hours, his hands sliding beneath her lab coat. Her breathless warning, security cameras. His reckless response, I don't care who sees us. The intensity of the memory made him grip the table edge for support. You remembered something else, Valerie observed. He said simply, in the lab, after hours. Color touched her cheeks. That happened more than once. I'm starting to understand why I fell for you. The moment stretched between them, charged with history only one of them fully remembered. Then Leo's coughing from a bedroom broke the spell. He needs that stabilizer soon, Valerie said. His condition is accelerating. Grant checked his watch. We need help. Someone inside Biothera who still has access. Everyone who knew about Mnemosyne was either part of it or had their memories wiped. Not everyone. Grant pulled out his phone. My father's former research partner, Martin Chun. He retired 3 years ago. Conveniently after questioning some of Biothera's research ethics. Can we trust him? According to these files, he was the one who helped me document everything before they caught me. Grant dialed the number. And if my instincts are right, he's been waiting 9 years for this call. Martin Chun agreed to meet them at a 24-hour diner just off the interstate. At 72, he carried himself with the precise movements of a lifelong scientist, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. I wondered when you'd remember, he said instead of hello, sliding into the booth across from Grant and Valerie. Though I didn't expect it would take so long. While Valerie stayed at the safe house with Leo, Grant outlined what they knew and what they needed. Martin listened without interruption, occasionally nodding as pieces aligned with his own knowledge. The stabilizing compound exists, he confirmed. I helped you develop it before everything happened. But accessing it won't be simple. Thomas restructured security after your extraction. Thomas being my father, Grant said flatly. Martin's expression softened. Yes, I'm sorry, Grant. The deception about his death was particularly cruel, but necessary for their narrative. Why help us now? You must be risking everything. The older man pulled out his wallet, revealing a photo of a young woman. My granddaughter developed early-onset Alzheimer's at 28. No family history, no genetic markers. Just sudden, catastrophic memory loss. His voice hardened. 2 months after I questioned Thomas about experimental memory compounds being tested outside proper protocols. Grant understood immediately. They used it on her. As a warning to you. Precisely. So you see, I've been waiting for this opportunity for a very long time. By midnight, they had a plan. Martin's retired status still afforded him limited access to Biothera's public research areas. He would enter during regular hours, establishing his presence for security logs. Grant would use his biometric signature to access restricted areas after hours. Your father never removed your clearance, Martin explained. He believed you'd return one day, either as an ally once properly reprogrammed, or as a threat to be eliminated. Either way, he wanted access to you. At the safe house, they gathered around Leo's bed for a final check before departure. You have to come back, the boy said, gripping Grant's hand with surprising strength. You promised to teach me baseball. Grant's throat tightened. I don't remember promising that. You did, in my dream. Leo's certainty was unshakable. The real you promised. Something passed between them. A connection deeper than memory, written in shared blood. Grant leaned down, pressing his forehead to his son's. Then I will. Count on it. Outside, in the privacy of the porch, Valerie handed Grant a small device. Direct communication will be too risky once you're inside, she said. This will transmit your location only. If you go dark for more than 20 minutes, I'll execute contingency protocols. The technical language couldn't mask her fear. Acting on instinct, Grant pulled her close. For a heartbeat, she resisted, then melted against him, her body remembering what his mind still struggled to reclaim. I'm coming back, he whispered against her hair. To both of you. She pulled back just enough to meet his gaze, then rose on tiptoes to press her lips against his, urgent, demanding, a physical reminder of everything at stake. You better, she breathed against his mouth. We've waited 9 years already. Don't make us wait any longer. Biothera Pharmaceuticals dominated the La Jolla skyline, a gleaming monument to medical innovation, its glass facade reflecting the afternoon sun as Martin and Grant approached in separate vehicles. Following the plan, Martin entered through the main lobby, his retired researcher status granting him access to the publicly celebrated research floors. Grant waited in a service alley, monitoring the security feed Martin had tapped into. Approaching first checkpoint, Martin's voice came through the secure earpiece, still recognized as friendly by the system. Grant watched Martin move through the building on his tablet, the older man stopping to chat with former colleagues, establishing his presence as innocent nostalgia rather than infiltration. At precisely 5:47 p.m., Martin accidentally spilled coffee on the biometric scanner at a side entrance, requiring a maintenance override that would create a temporary blind spot in the security system. "You have 4 minutes," Martin murmured into his comm. "Make them count." Grant slipped through the service entrance, using the keycard duplicator on the first internal door. The familiar weight of the building settled around him. The hum of climate control, the faint antiseptic smell. His body remembered these hallways, even if his mind didn't fully recall them. Following Martin's directions, he navigated to a service elevator requiring palm authentication. Grant held his breath as he pressed his hand to the scanner, relief washing through him when the light flashed green. His father had indeed kept his access active, arrogant enough to believe Grant would never remember enough to use it against him. The sub-basement levels grew increasingly restricted with each floor. By the time Grant reached sub-level 3, the clinical white hallways had given way to reinforced doors and armed security checkpoints. "The lab is at the end of the southeast corridor," Martin instructed. "Room SL3-42. But Grant, there's movement on the security feed. Someone's already down there." Grant pressed against the wall as a guard passed, then continued toward the lab. Through the glass partition, he saw a familiar silhouette that stopped him cold. A tall figure with silver-streaked dark hair, bent over microscope. His father. Not dead, not retired, very much present and working. "Martin," Grant whispered. "Thomas is here." A long pause. "This changes things. He'll recognize you immediately. No choice. Leo needs that stabilizer." Grant swiped his ID at the final checkpoint. The door hissed open, and Thomas Whitaker looked up from his work. 4-3 heartbeats. Father and son stared at each other across 9 years of deception. Then Thomas smiled, the same confident smile that had graced Biothera marketing materials for decades. "Grant, you're right on schedule." Cold realization washed over Grant. "You knew I was coming." "Of course." The moment your blood transferred to the boy, we detected the protein activation. Basic biochemistry. The connection goes both ways. Thomas gestured to the security monitors. "We've been tracking you since the hospital. Did you really think that Safe House was still secret?" Grant's hand moved toward the concealed syringe in his pocket, the knockout drug Martin had provided. "Looking for this?" Thomas held up an identical syringe. "I taught you everything you know, son, including your rather predictable approach to problem solving. Where's the stabilizer?" Grant demanded. Thomas reached into a refrigerated cabinet, removing a small vial of golden-tinted liquid. "Right here, the culmination of your research before your sabbatical. Hand it over. Leo's dying." "Now," Thomas rolled the name with distaste. "Your unfortunate genetic legacy. A flawed copy carrying our most valuable intellectual property in his veins." He held up the vial. "This stabilizer is worth billions to the right military contract. What's one child against national security interests?" Grant lunged forward, but security doors slammed shut, trapping him inside the lab with his father. "Welcome home, son," Thomas said, pocketing the vial. "We have so much to discuss." "You look confused," Thomas said, circling Grant like a predator. "Still struggling with those memory gaps? I can help with that." Grant kept his eyes on the vial in his father's pocket. "I remember enough. I remember what you did to me." "What I did?" Thomas laughed. "I saved you from yourself. Your bleeding heart would have destroyed everything we built. Imagine wanting to give away the most powerful memory technology in history because of ethical concerns. The lab's bright lights reflected off polished surfaces, creating an atmosphere of sterile menace. Through the glass walls, Grant could see security personnel gathering. "Leo doesn't have much time," Grant said, changing tactics. "Whatever your issues with me, he's innocent." Thomas's expression hardened. "No one with that genetic profile is innocent. The boy is a walking security breach." Grant felt his phone vibrate. Valerie's signal that the 20-minute window had elapsed. Whatever happened next would include her contingency plan, though he had no idea what that might be. "You erase my memories. Let me believe you were dead. And now you're willing to let your grandson die." Grant stepped closer. "What happened to you?" "Power happened." Thomas tapped his temple. "Control of memory is control of reality itself. Governments around the world are bidding billions for what we've developed from your blood." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. The security monitors switched to the main lobby, where smoke billowed from multiple locations. "That would be Valerie," Grant said, unable to suppress a smile. Thomas's composure cracked. She was always too clever for her own good. The distraction was enough. Grant launched himself forward, catching his father off guard. They crashed against the lab counter, equipment shattering around them. Grant's hand closed around the vial as Thomas struck him across the face. Blood trickled from Grant's lip as he staggered back, the precious stabilizer clutched in his fist. "You'll never make it out of here," Thomas snarled, reaching for the security alarm. "I don't need to." Grant yanked a fire extinguisher from the wall and smashed it through the glass partition, setting off another layer of alarms. "I just need to create enough chaos to cover our escape." As security rushed toward the lab, Grant vaulted through the broken glass and sprinted down the corridor. Martin's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Service elevator. West Wing. 2 minutes." Grant ran, the vial secure in his inner pocket, his father's enraged shouts fading behind him. The memory suppression was wearing off faster now, adrenaline breaking through whatever remained of the chemical blocks. He remembered Austin, the lab, falling for Valerie despite professional boundaries. The night Leo was conceived. Not a mistake, but a moment of connection in the midst of uncovering his father's betrayal. The service elevator doors opened as he rounded the corner, Martin holding them with a maintenance override. As they ascended, Grant's vision blurred, the flood of returning memories overwhelming his neural pathways. "Stay with me," Martin urged, supporting him as the elevator reached the ground floor. Cognitive cascade is normal during rapid memory recovery. Outside, chaos reigned as fire alarms emptied the building. In the confusion, they slipped away to Martin's waiting car. "Did you get it?" Martin asked as they pulled away. Grant held up the golden vial, his hands shaking from exertion and memory overload. "We've got what we need, but my father's not going to stop coming for us." "Let him try," Martin said grimly. "Some things are worth fighting for." As they drove toward the safe house, Grant closed his eyes, letting the memories wash over him. Not all of them had returned, but the most important ones had, the ones that made him a father. Dawn broke over the safe house as Martin prepared the stabilizer for Leo. The boy lay shivering despite the warm blankets, Valerie holding his hand while Grant paced the room. "His system's crashing," Martin explained, filling a syringe with the golden liquid. "The temporary benefits from your blood transfusion are wearing off." Grant watched as Martin administered the injection, the solution disappearing into Leo's thin arm. For several minutes, nothing changed. Then Leo's breathing steadied, his skin flushing with healthy color. "It's working," Valerie whispered, tears streaming down her face. Martin checked Leo's vitals, nodding with satisfaction. "The stabilizer is bonding with his cellular structure. It should permanently regulate the protein production." Relief washed over Grant, so powerful it made his knees weak. He sank into a chair beside the bed, reaching for Leo's other hand. The boy's fingers curled around his, a grip growing stronger by the minute. "We need to move," Martin said, gathering the medical supplies. "Thomas won't waste time tracking us here." "Where can we go?" Valerie asked. "They've frozen Grant's accounts, flagged our identities." "I have a place," Martin replied. "A cabin in the mountains, off the grid." We can regroup there while Leo recovers. As they packed essentials, Grant's head suddenly exploded with pain. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall as images flooded his consciousness. Memories returning in an overwhelming torrent. Grant! Valerie was at his side instantly. Too much, too fast, he gasped. The memory barriers collapsing completely. Martin pressed 2 fingers against Grant's carotid artery, frowning at his racing pulse. This is dangerous. Your brain isn't designed to process this volume of returning memory at once. Before they could decide what to do, headlights swept across the front windows. Not just one vehicle, 3. They found us, Valerie said, moving immediately to Leo. Grant forced himself upright despite the cognitive storm inside his head. Back door. Now. They fled through the kitchen as the front door splintered open. Grant grabbed the USB drive and his father's files, shoving them into Valerie's hands before turning back. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Buying time. Get Leo to the car." Before she could protest, Grant moved toward the front of the house, a new memory surfacing. The location of a gun he'd hidden years ago in preparation for exactly this scenario. He retrieved the weapon from behind a loose baseboard and took position at the hallway junction. As the first security team entered, Grant fired at the ceiling, sending them diving for cover. "Next shot won't miss," he called out. "I just want you to deliver a message to Thomas." A familiar voice responded, not from the security team, but from behind them. "Deliver yourself." Grant turned to find his father standing in the kitchen doorway, blocking the escape route to where Valerie and Leo had fled. Worse, Thomas wasn't alone. 2 guards held Martin between them, blood trickling from a cut on the older man's forehead. "Family reunion," Thomas said, stepping forward. "How touching." Grant raised his weapon, aiming directly at his father. "Stay back. You won't shoot me," Thomas said confidently. "You never had the stomach for necessary violence. It's why I had to protect the company from you." Memory and reality aligned in Grant's mind. His father's lifelong manipulation, the betrayal that went beyond business to attack the very foundation of his identity. "You're right," Grant said, lowering the gun slightly. "I won't shoot you." Then he fired at the propane tank visible through the kitchen window. The explosion rocked the house, sending everyone diving for cover as glass and debris showered the kitchen. Grant used the chaos to grab Martin, pulling him away from the stun guards. "Run," he shouted, shoving the older man toward the back door. Outside, Valerie had the car running, Leo secured in the back seat. Grant and Martin piled in as bullets pinged off the metal frame. "Go, go, go." Grant yelled, and Valerie floored the accelerator, fishtailing down the dirt driveway as the safe house burned behind them. Leo's eyes were wide with fear and excitement. "Did you blow up our house?" "Just a distraction," Grant said, checking the rearview mirror for pursuit. "Your grandfather plays rough." "Thomas survive?" Martin asked, pressing a handkerchief to his bleeding forehead. Unfortunately, as they sped toward the mountains, Grant's mind continued to reorganize itself, memories slotting back into place like puzzle pieces. The pain had subsided to a dull throb, but each recovered memory brought fresh waves of emotion. Anger, loss, love, 9 years of life experience compressed into hours. "How's Leo?" he asked, twisting to check on his son. "The stabilizer's working," Valerie said. "His color's better than I've seen in months." The boy had fallen asleep, his breathing deep and regular. Grant reached back to brush hair from Leo's forehead, marveling at the connection he felt to this child he was still getting to know. "I remember the day you told me you were pregnant," he said quietly to Valerie. "I was terrified and thrilled at the same time." She glanced at him, hope cautious in her eyes. "You remember that? And the fight we had about baby names." He smiled. "You wanted Alexander. I insisted on Leo, after my grandfather." "You won that one," she admitted, returning the smile. Martin cleared his throat. "The cabin's about 3 hours north, near Julian. We should be safe there while we figure out next steps." Grant nodded, his mind already working on a plan. "We need evidence, enough to expose Thomas and Biothera without putting us at risk." The USB drive has research data, Martin said, but nothing directly linking Thomas to illegal memory manipulation. I might have something better. Grant pulled out his phone, scrolling through files Jessica had sent before communications went dark. My executive assistant forwarded my complete records, including medical tests performed at biotherapy facilities that I never authorized. Martin leaned forward. Patient records showing unauthorized procedures would be powerful evidence. Combined with the research documents showing military applications of memory technology, that's a congressional investigation at minimum. As they strategized, Leo stirred in the back seat, opening his eyes. Are we safe now? The simple question hung in the air. Grant reached back again, taking his son's hand. Not yet, buddy, but we will be. Leo studied him with those matching hazel eyes. You remember me now, don't you? Not just from the hospital, from before. I do, Grant said, throat tightening. I remember teaching you to walk. Your first words, the stuffed dinosaur you couldn't sleep without. The boy's face lit up. Mr. Chomps. I still have him. I know. He's in your backpack. This small proof, remembering a detail he couldn't have known without his memories returning, made Leo beam with happiness. As mountain roads carried them higher into the darkness, Grant felt something shift inside him. Not just memories returning, but identity reforming. He wasn't just the ruthless businessman he'd been programmed to be. He was a father, a partner, someone worth fighting for and worth fighting as. Martin's cabin was more fortress than retreat, solar-powered, with satellite internet and security systems that would make most government facilities envious. Paranoia serves its purpose, the older man explained as he disabled the perimeter alarms to let them enter. I've spent years preparing for Thomas to come after me. Inside, the rustic exterior gave way to modern technology hidden beneath log cabin aesthetics. While Martin set up secure communications, Grant and Valerie settled Leo in a small bedroom. The stabilizer had worked miracles. Already the boy was showing more energy, his cheeks flushed with healthy color. Try to sleep, Valerie told him, tucking blankets around his shoulders. We're safe here. When Leo finally drifted off, they joined Martin in a main room, where multiple screens displayed news reports about the fugitive executive Grant Whitaker, wanted for corporate espionage and embezzlement. They're painting you as a corporate traitor, Martin said, gesturing to the screens. Complete character assassination. Standard Thomas Whitaker playbook, Grant replied. Destroy the messenger when you can't bury the message. Grant outlined what they knew. Thomas had weaponized the memory-altering properties in their shared bloodline, selling the technology to military and intelligence agencies, while publicly marketing watered-down versions as treatments for PTSD and dementia. The stabilizer we gave Leo was only one application of the research, he explained. The more valuable military application allows targeted memory manipulation without consent, literally rewriting history at the neurological level, Martin added. Imagine erasing specific memories from witnesses, implanting false confessions, reprogramming operatives. Valerie shuddered. And Leo and Grant are walking sources of the key protein, which is why Thomas will never stop coming for us, Grant concluded. As if summoned by his words, Martin's security system chimed. A vehicle was approaching, slowly, lights off, taking the unmarked access road. That was fast, Martin muttered, pulling up exterior cameras. The screen showed a single black SUV crawling up the mountain road, still 2 miles out, but definitely headed their way. Could be coincidence, Valerie suggested without conviction. There are no coincidences with Thomas, Grant said, already moving to gather essentials. We need to go. Now. Martin shook his head. No time. They've already blocked the main road down the mountain. He pointed to another security feed showing 2 more vehicles at the base of the access road. We're surrounded. Grant's mind raced through options, discarding each as quickly as they formed. Then his eyes fell on the communications array Martin had established. We don't run, he decided. We broadcast. Working quickly, they compiled the evidence, research documents, patient files, memory suppression protocols, and prepared a data package for simultaneous distribution to regulatory agencies, news outlets, and congressional oversight committees. Even if they capture us, the truth gets out, Grant explained, fingers flying over the keyboard. As the upload began, the security system blared again. The SUV had stopped half a mile out. Thermal imaging showed 4 figures deploying into the woods. "They're coming in quiet," Martin observed, "trying to take us by surprise." Grant moved to the bedroom, gently waking Leo. "Hey, buddy, we need to move to the safe room. Like a game of hide and seek, okay?" The boy nodded sleepily, allowing himself to be carried to a hidden panic room Martin revealed behind a bookcase. Valerie joined them with emergency supplies while Martin monitored the approaching team. "Upload at 60%, Martin called out. "We need 5 more minutes for complete distribution." Outside, the thermal signatures were converging on the cabin from multiple directions. Grant checked the handgun Martin had provided, hoping he wouldn't need it, but prepared to protect his family at any cost. "I never wanted this life for us," he told Valerie as they secured the panic room. She took his face in her hands. "But we're facing it together." Finally, the security feed showed the assault team reaching the cabin perimeter. 4 operatives in tactical gear, moving with military precision. Grant recognized the formation. Biothera's private security detail, former special forces hired for their discretion and effectiveness. "They're good," he murmured to Martin. "So am I," the older man replied, activating additional security measures. Hidden panels in the cabin exterior slid open, revealing automated countermeasures. Non-lethal deterrents. Shabaya's time. The upload continued. 70%, 75, 80, each percentage point bringing them closer to insurance against Thomas's reach. Inside the panic room, Valerie distracted Leo with a tablet game, keeping him occupied while monitoring their situation through a secure feed. The boy was handling the crisis with remarkable composure, further evidence of the stabilizer's effectiveness. Martin suddenly stiffened, eyes on the exterior cameras. "We have another player." A 5th figure appeared on the thermal imaging, but this one wasn't moving with the tactical team. It was approaching directly up the main driveway, alone and unhurried. "Thomas," Grant said, recognizing his father's distinctive gait even in the infrared signature. "He's coming himself." As if hearing his name, Thomas looked directly at one of the hidden cameras and smiled. He held up a satellite phone, clearly requesting communication. Martin hesitated, then patched the call through to the cabin's speaker system. "Grant." Thomas's voice filled the room, calm and reasonable. "This has gone far enough. Let's resolve this like businessmen." "Businessmen don't erase their sons' memories," Grant replied evenly. Thomas sighed, the sound crackling through the speakers. "A regrettable necessity, one I'm prepared to make amends for. By killing us, we're just wiping our minds again." "Neither. I'm proposing a compromise. The stabilizer formula for Leo's continued health, plus $5 million in new identities. You disappear, live comfortable lives, and Biothera continues its important work." The upload reached 90%. "And if we refuse?" Thomas's voice hardened. "Then my team breaches that cabin, and only Leo leaves alive. His genetic material is all I really need." Grant met Martin's eyes, silently communicating. They needed just a few more minutes for the upload to complete. "I want proof you have the complete formula," Grant countered, stalling. "The dose we took might not be sufficient for long-term stabilization. Check your email. I just sent the full protocol." Martin verified. The email had arrived, containing detailed chemical formulas for Leo's treatment. 95%. "Come outside," Grant Thomas continued. "You and I can end this between us. No one else needs to get hurt." The tactical team had halted their advance, awaiting orders. Grant's mind raced, calculating options. If he went outside, he might buy enough time for the upload to complete, securing their leverage even if he was captured. "Grant, don't." Valerie's voice came through from the panic room. "It's a trap." "I know," he replied softly, "but it's our best chance." Martin grabbed his arm. "The upload's at 98%. 2 more minutes, and we've won." Grant checked his weapon, then headed for the door. "Keep them safe. If this goes wrong, get them out through the tunnel." Before Martin could protest further, Grant opened the communication line. "I'm coming out, Thomas. Just me. Your team stays put." "Wise decision," his father replied. Outside, the mountain air bit cold against Grant's face. Thomas stood 30 yards away, illuminated by the cabin's exterior lights. No visible weapon, but Grant knew better than to think his father was defenseless. "Hello, son," Thomas called as Grant approached. "It's time we finished what began 9 years ago. 100%. In houses and offices across the country. The evidence was now spreading beyond anyone's ability to contain it." 6 months later, Grant stood at the picture window of their new home on the Oregon coast, watching Leo race along the beach with a kite streaming behind him. The boy's laughter carried on the wind, a sound Grant never tired of hearing. Behind him, Valerie wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Still keeping watch." "Old habits," he admitted, covering her hands with his own. The congressional hearings had concluded 2 months ago. BioThera Pharmaceuticals was under new management, its military contracts canceled pending multiple federal investigations. Project Mnemosyne had been exposed, its victims identified, and offered treatment to restore suppressed memories. Thomas Whitaker had disappeared the night at the cabin, vanishing into the darkness after Grant had revealed the completed upload. His father's final words still echoed in Grant's mind. "You've destroyed everything I built. Remember that when you're building something of your own." The authorities were still searching, but Grant suspected they would never find him. Thomas had too many resources, too many contingency plans. Some nights, Grant still woke in cold sweats, certain his father was watching from the shadows. "Leo wants to know if you're still taking him fishing this afternoon," Valerie said, pulling him back to the present. "Wouldn't miss it." His phone buzzed. Martin, with the weekly update on Leo's medical progress. The stabilizer continued to work perfectly. Leo's blood test showing normal protein levels for the first time in his life. They'd established an Mnemosyne Foundation with what remained of Grant's recovered assets, dedicated to helping victims of memory manipulation and funding ethical research into neurological conditions. Martin served as scientific director, his expertise finally used for healing rather than exploitation. Grant's memories had mostly returned, though some gaps remained, ghost periods he might never recover. But the important ones had come back. Meeting Valerie, Leo's birth, the man he'd been before Thomas rewrote his history. "What are you thinking about?" Valerie asked, sensing his introspection. "Different things could have been. If I hadn't gone to that hospital." She turned him to face her. "But you did. Despite everything they took from you, some part of you still knew what mattered." Outside, Leo waved frantically, pointing to his kite soaring high above the beach. Grant waved back, heart full. Their relationship had evolved over these months. Grant and Valerie getting to know each other again, rebuilding what had been lost while honoring what remained. Some nights they stayed up talking, filling in 9 years of separation. Other nights, they created new memories, rediscovering the chemistry that had brought them together in that Austin laboratory years ago. Last night had been one of those nights. Her body familiar, yet new against his. Their connection deeper now, with shared struggle and triumph binding them beyond physical attraction. "I've been thinking," Grant said, pulling Valerie closer. "Maybe it's time we made things official." Her eyebrows raised. "Are you proposing, Mr. Whitaker?" "Considering it." He smiled. "Leo's been dropping hints about wanting us to have the same last name." "Has he now?" She laughed. "And what do you want?" Grant's answer was interrupted by Leo bursting through the door, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Dad, Mom, my kite went higher than the cliffs." He barreled into them, creating a 3-person huddle in front of the window. This was what Grant wanted, what he'd found despite everything designed to keep him from it. Later, as they prepared fishing gear on the dock behind their house, Leo looked up at Grant with serious eyes. "Are you still afraid Grandpa will find us?" The question caught Grant off guard. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Why do you ask?" "Because even if he does, we'd still be okay." Leo's certainty was absolute. "We're stronger together. That's what you always say." Grant ruffled his son's hair, struck by the simple wisdom. "When did you get so smart?" "I have your blood," Leo replied with a grin. Mom says that makes me twice as stubborn, but 3 times as brave. Grant laughed, casting his line into the water beside his sons. Whatever the future held, whatever Thomas might still have planned, they would face it together. Blood of his blood, but bound by something stronger than genetics: choice. Family not by obligation, but by love. In the end, that was the one memory no one could erase.